As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be in a Mafia movie.
Our own slice of the family started small with 13 members. We were part of a bigger family. The Don was all the way in the UK, but we made sure to do his bidding. The Don was like a god to us. He united 4 families back in the motherland and was making a name for himself. He was on track to becoming the biggest family that the world had ever seen. But he saw something in us, and we kept everything within the family. We ate together. We shared together. We made a whole load of money together. We all wanted to be the Don, but we always showed him respect. We copied him. We tried to speak like him. We dressed like him. We even tried to run our little family like the Don. We even drank tea. Can you believe it? Us 13 who never even visited the motherland or even seen it, acting like we were from Britain. But one thing we knew for sure was the Don was the top dog. But the Don started pushing us. We wanted to start working with other families, but the Don would only let us work with him. We couldn't set up a racket with anyone else except the Don. He also took a tax from us, but unlike his own family back in the mother country, he didn't give us a voice. We couldn't say squat to the boss, and he knew it. On top of that, he told us we couldn't expand our territory, even though we had all the muscle we needed. So we decided screw the boss. Us 13 would create our own family. And can you believe it? We had the balls to call it the United States. We took the boss's beloved tea and threw it in the ocean. We thought screw the boss, and if he had a problem with us, he could come over and whack us. And oh boy did he try. But we weren't just gonna sit on our ass while it all happened. So it was decided. And on April 19th, 1775, we started taking out redcoats. By July the 4th, 1776, we decided to make it official and put it on paper that we will not be controlled. We make our own destiny. We had to fight the Don, and after 8 years we finally succeeded. He had capos which were infiltrating our family, trying to break us apart, like this jackass Benedict Arnold. But you know what? We caught that little rat and sent him back to his scummy Don as a present. Now we were finally free to do whatever we wanted, without the Don breathing down our necks. So we expanded our territory and we added new members to our family. We also set the rules for how we were going to play the game, making sure that the other families couldn't interfere. We built up our rackets and started moving our products all around the world. But not everything was rosy. Our family was not as close as we once were. We would argue and bicker, and 2 main groups came out of it. But not to worry, we were still one, and we would always stay as one. But there was always a silver lining. There was a family next door to us who couldn't control their territory anymore, so we gave them an offer they couldn't refuse. We bought their territory from them and gave them 15 million smackaroons. But really, they were the ones that did us a big favor. First of all that territory was a steal. We managed to double the size of our territory, but more importantly, for now at least, they kept our old boss's attention on them, fighting him at every corner, making it easier for our family to take control. But that boss of ours doesn't forget easily. We went back and forth with him a couple of times, but eventually he realized he couldn't keep warring us forever, so he chilled out. But I gotta give credit to that old bastard. He taught us a lot of things. One of the most important being he taught us how to make these big metal machines that farted out steam. And can you believe it? These machines could make things we could sell in our rackets. We were making so much stuff the chumps in our territory were getting rich, meaning we could extort more money from them. Not only that, but get this, we could attach one of those big metal things to 2 pieces of metal on the ground, and it will push itself forward. Metal is an amazing thing, right? If you told me this 60 years ago, I would have told you.
Get the fuck out of here.
While all of this was going on, we were extorting these black fellas. We extorted them so good we got rich. With this money and our rackets in full swing, and us moving product all around the world, we decided it was time to muscle in on even more of our neighbors to the west and to the south. We easily dealt with both and added more members to our family. We were untouchable. Some say it was wrong, but we said we were just manifesting our destiny. We moved into these frontiers and removed anyone who thought they could stay in our territory. We added even more members to our family. But all this warring and murder softened some of us. So we took a more diplomatic approach and bought this territory from a family that we had beaten into the dirt. It was a sympathy buy because we probably could have just taken it. But we paid another 15 million smackaroons. Even after this, some of the family started gaining even more of a conscience and decided that extorting these black fellas was wrong, and some of the family stopped. I thought they were crazy at first, but I listened to them. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I'm gonna stop this too. And so it began. More than half the family gave up doing this, but the other half was not convinced. So in order to prevent all-out war within the family and to continue expanding our territory, we came to a compromise. Every 2 members of the family that joined, one of them could extort black fellas. And we even allowed some of the new members to decide for themselves. But eventually, even this was not enough, and some members of the family threatened to leave. So we had to put a stop to this. We asked the 11 members who extorted black fellas to stop, and they said to us, why you busting my balls over these black fellas? We extort them. Let us extort them. The fuck? Names were called. People were called snobs. The family was divided. We tried to reason with the other half of the family, but they didn't want to hear it.
I'm only kidding with you.
They attacked one of us, and he came to us with a bloody nose. They jumped a few more of us and roughed us up, but we were strong. We understood there were more of us, so we fought back. Our old boss even got involved and started giving support to these clowns to fight us, even though our old boss also thought it was wrong to extort black fellas. But I gotta admit, they knew how to fight, but we knew how to win, and eventually we beat them. They finally agreed that extorting these black fellas was wrong, but they still said we ain't gonna treat these black fellas good, and we said fine. We don't treat them like kings either. We are slowly climbing up the ladder in the underworld. We have all these families in our local neighborhood scared of us, but it was time to branch out. We needed to extort more, and we needed to add more members to our family, because by this time our boss was looking like this, and we looked like this. We also learned a few more things from our old boss. We learned that if you have bigger ships and bigger guns, you can pretty much get whatever the hell you wanted. And you better believe we tried it. And could you believe it? It actually worked. Even while we were infighting in our own family, we were still going out and scaring the shit out of others. One of our capos went to these guys and basically told them, if you don't let us move product to you, then you're in big trouble. We gave them a year to make their decision, and they decided not to get on the wrong side of us. After all of this was settled, we approached one more family and gave them an offer they couldn't refuse. We knew they needed money, and we bought this territory for 7.2 million smackaroons. Little did we know at the time, this family was gonna give us big problems down the road. If I knew then what I know now, I would have just told the family to take it from them and not pay them squat. We then continued expanding and taking out smaller families, taking this for our own. We also really wanted these 3 territories, and we didn't like the Spanish mob, but we needed a reason to start a war with them. Like a miracle from God himself, one of our ships mysteriously exploded. So you know who we were gonna blame it on. Of course, the Spanish mob. They were not as powerful as they once were, so it was like taking candy from a baby. With all of that business finished, we could focus on our rackets. We made a better version of this. Plus, one of our associates came up with a great idea. He came up with a way to mass produce this metal box. And get this, it could drive you around. The family liked this idea so much we got a load of them built. In fact, we built a load of different shit. We would hawk this shit all around the globe. We was even getting close to our old boss. Hell, he even got into a few scruffles with the German, Turkish, and Austrian mob. We gave him a helping hand. I can't lie, that was a great war. I'm just glad nothing like that ever happened again.
Get the fuck out of here.
This time the German mob was back, and they stole a lot of our ideas. We didn't like it, but we really didn't want to be helping out our old boss like that, because we weren't even close to him. Add the fact that we had a lot of members of our family that had ties to the German mob, making it kinda hard to be interested. But the other families around the world insisted we joined. They kept telling us how much fun it would be and how much rackets we could set up. We still wasn't convinced, but then the German mob started attacking the goods we were sending to the other mobs. And these assholes who we threatened before, who used to look like this and now look like this, decided to attack the person who made them who they are. So we had to fight back now. So we started taking their territory slowly, making our way into their neighborhood. As we got closer, we realized their neighborhood was gonna be full of them. And these guys are fierce. So we had to think of another way to get to them. That's when we hit them over the head with 2 swings from our baseball bat. Those 2 blows really readjusted their brain. After all this hard work, the family that started with 13 members was now a family with 50 members. We had just readjusted the Japanese brains, and we even surpassed our old boss. We were the kings of the world, and we were gonna make sure we stuck our noses in everybody's shit. We made sure that everything the family needed we would have. So we made sure we set up rackets here to keep a nice steady supply of what we needed. Things were nice and had cooled. Once things had cooled down, we wanted to keep them cold. But these guys who I told you about before, they were bad. They wanted to ruin our way of life. They didn't believe in creating value in your rackets and then benefiting those who start the racket, the one who took all the risk. They believed that if you start a racket, you bring the whole family in and share with everybody. We couldn't have that hippie shit going on in our territory. Plus they was making their own baseball bats, so they could avoid us hitting them over the head with ours. So guess what we had to do? We responded by making even more baseball bats, and we made them bigger, and they hit a whole lot harder. But these guys were just as busy as we were, and before you knew it, we were both arming up to the teeth, ready for another big fight, hoping we didn't have to smash each other's skulls in with baseball bats, because we knew we had enough baseball bats to smash not only our heads, but enough to pop the whole world like a balloon. It even got so bad we had people patrolling the border of their territory trying to get a peek in to see if we could find where they were making bets. We even had guys whose sole job was to wait for them to attack us and then retaliate. We also tried to outcompete each other in creating rackets and extorting. The game had changed. It was no longer about who owned territory. It was about who could influence other families to follow their style of running the mob. We fought a lot of wars trying to gain dominance. We even built these big metal dick-shaped things. In case shit went down, we could attack each other in space. But thankfully, our way was better. We was making more stuff and we was gaining more influence around the world. And people everywhere were trying to be like us. Everything wasn't perfect though. Do you remember these black fellas? Well, after we stopped extorting them for everything they had, they just became like the regular schmucks who we would extort normally. But we didn't allow them to be in certain places in our territory. The way we saw it was they were not part of the family. but they wanted to be. They asked us multiple times to join the family. We refused. We even had associates who would lynch him and we didn't do nothing about it. I guess we still had some ill feeling toward them, but these black fellas were persistent. They were well spoken and made points we couldn't argue with. Plus they showed us how much heart they had. I mean, they would sit in the face of danger and peacefully protest, while we were spraying them with water and setting dogs on them. They kept this up long enough that we had no choice but to accept them in the family. They tried to set up their own rackets and start doing business, but we destroyed it any chance we got. We had our own ideas on how these guys were gonna do business. We made sure we kept them in the inner cities of our territory. We would redline them so they couldn't move anywhere else. Plus we would make sure they didn't get too organized, because that would be bad for business. We also made sure that we created industrial complexes to give them a helping hand. Once we had given them that helping hand, we introduced them to the racket we wanted them to work. And throughout the 80s and the 90s, they got really involved in this new racket, and we was making major money. We did it real smart, where we saw all the cash, but they took all the risk and made nothing. But we were still dealing with the Russian mob. We had a few scares here and there, but it all ended when things fell apart for the enemy mob. Their whole system fell apart, and they eventually joined our side. Kind of. Now, no one could stop us. We had a grip everywhere in the world. There wasn't one corner of the world where you wouldn't hear our name or see us. We allowed associates to go out and expand. They built up their rackets and they brought their money back to the home country. But this was a double-edged sword, and eventually these associates got power. The mob was now under threat from these special interest types. Anyway, things continued. We was making all the money, except for these guys. We was innovating, making new stuff, and by now I had no idea what half this shit even did, but people loved it. We made stuff like this. These guys were the real brainiac types. They turned sand into these chips. Not the type you could eat, but something that would go in these little plastic boxes and do shit. I thought it was bullshit, but businesses was loving them. They started getting richer and richer. But then bang, something happened which we didn't see coming. Or maybe we did. We now had a new enemy, and we was gonna make sure we didn't look like chumps, tucking our tails in between our legs like we did here. We was gonna get this asshole, and we was gonna whack him. We went to these two countries and was killing everything that moved. But the scary thing was, remember these little nerdy types? Well, they was making a boatload of money. They was gaining influence and started influencing the family. So we was in a bad spot. We was fighting wars and at the same time had these nerdy guys taking over. We finished those wars and got out tucking our tails between our legs again. And now we had a lot on our plate. We are still the top dogs, but we are now competing against the Chinese mob, and their boss doesn't fuck around. We had a few shitty mob bosses who had fucked things up. Us 50 no longer called the shots, and these nerdy types have moved in. A few of them even had their own little mob called APEC, which had been around for a while, but recently they had become a lot more active. Now they call the shots and get us to work for them in everything they do. They asked me if I could visit anywhere on earth, where I would go, and I told them
I would go to Israel.
they used us to get wealthy, and now they call the shots. But like an angel from heaven, we got this beautiful creature and all his beautiful billionaire pure-blooded American friends, and they decided we weren't gonna take shit from no one and that we could
Still blow shit up.
Now we are smacking tariffs left, right, and center. Oh wait, that didn't work. But don't worry, Don Donald had more tricks up his sleeve. Now anyone can get it, even our own allies.
But you're not acting at all.
We talk a lot of shit, and we do what Daddy Netanyahu tells us to do. Even if our nose is in Israel's ass, at least our old boss has his nose in ours. Hopefully Daddy Donald can keep us on top, but we'll have to wait and see.